good now to you? Welcome to Promise Resource Network. This is Expansions with me. I'm Jade. I'm going to give everyone a moment to tune in while I pop on this. It may take me a second to type it up. Please hold while I type in Sanskrit. So it's going to maybe autocorrect me, and it's not, and I'm so excited. Are you ready? There it is. Yes. Awesome. So I'll give everyone a moment to tune in while I get comfortable, and hopefully while you get comfortable. This is the spiritual dimension of wellness that we get to dive into, expand and explore and play and talk about all the things that I feel aren't really talked about that much. So today's topic is Svadhyaya, which I just like saying that word. There's so many words in Sanskrit that just are just fun to say, and this is one of them for me. But this has been the topic, so I'm going to keep on the topic for this week. It feels like the feed of this stream is weird. As I'm looking at myself, it looks like I am Max Headroom, if you remember that character from MTV. And if you don't, never mind. But I feel like I look like that. I want to say hello to Tina, who's joining us. What's up? She says. Zup. I want to say good evening to my mom, who is joining us. Hello, Mom. I'm happy you're here. And good evening to Tanisha. Tanisha, it is on the screen, and it is Svadhyaya. Svadhyaya. That's how I say it. I heard someone call it, I heard someone pronounce it Svadhyaya. So there was a E in the middle of it. So there's that. I pronounce it Svadhyaya. I would recommend anyone turn to Marcy Braverman Goldstein because she is like the whiz of all things Sanskrit and how to pronounce anything. Tina says, most people don't talk spiritual because it's uncomfortable for some. Right? Not for me. Let's talk about all things spiritual. And I may make others uncomfortable in doing so. What do you do? My mom says I couldn't spell, much less say it. Oh, it's a weird word for sure. For sure. The second letter is V, as in Victor. Svadhyaya. Oh, look, it looks like there's a party up in here. It is, and I'm lighting some sage. Clear the space, clear the air, connect. I'm going to read a poem to y'all today. It's a short one, but it really touched my soul. So I want to share it. Tina says, my God is better than your God. Right? I think that's why we don't collectively talk about spirituality, because the words that we give spirituality are what people cling so closely to, as opposed to the concepts and ideas. And I think in that difference in words, people miss the likeness that is what spirituality is to me. That's what I think. So, y'all, been clearing my throat a lot today because as I was brushing my teeth this morning, I choked on toothpaste. I know, it's dramatic, but it happened. And you know when you choke on something like spit, or you inhale water or toothpaste, how you just keep coughing a little bit? So I'm drinking my tea, which I'm going to get a sip of that so that we can all connect in with a little breath. My sage is still burning. So while we start to tune in, hey Marv, let's just breathe. Just breathe. Start to feel the air flowing in and out of your big, beautiful lungs. Feel your body on this earth. Feel the weight of your being, nature, here on this planet. Feel the gravitational pull of the earth holding you upon her. No matter how hard you try, she will never let go. Breathe in fully. And breathe out as your shoulders begin to soften. Let your body start to surrender into this now moment. Bring all of the awareness of all the previous nows that you've ever lived into this one now that we have together. Let go of the ideas of all the things that are happening outside of your space, outside of this time, and bring all of your awareness into now. Let your body be. Let your brain be. Let your mind be. And be with your breath. Take another couple breaths in while we all just connect together. Another breath in for me. I need that sometimes, y'all. I just need that sometimes. Y'all are cracking me up with what you're saying, though. As I was sharing how I was choking on my toothpaste. My mom's asking me if I was brushing my tonsils. Tina's telling me I got talent. It takes skills, y'all. It takes skills. I would like to say good evening to Marv and to Darlene. I'm so happy that you two are on here with us. You all bring me so much joy. Hey, Alan, you're included. You bring me so much joy, your all's presence. Me knowing that you're here. It feels so good and so connecting. So I'm really grateful as I zoom you into my lair. Not really, I just pulled the chair up closer. So y'all, this is the topic I want to talk about today. I'm going to pronounce it Svadhyaya. Again, I may be mispronouncing it a little bit, but I feel like it's pretty darn close. So there's that. So Svadhyaya is a Sanskrit term. It's a word for self-study. And I talked about it a little bit yesterday morning at Body, Mind, Spirit. It just, looking at our shadow and why we don't want to look at our shadow, because sometimes we don't want to see that dark stuff. It's Groundhog Day, which, by the way, conversation whiplash, but I do that. Did Punxsutawney Phil see his shadow today? Do y'all know? I want to say hey to Cindy who's joining us. I'm happy you're here. Talking about Svadhyaya today. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah, did Punxsutawney Phil see a shadow? I don't even know. I know it doesn't even matter. And Tina says, why are we all the groundhog? Right? So true. So true. So what I was talking about yesterday was, how the story is that this groundhog pops up. It's wintertime. He looks for a shadow. If he sees it, he's like, oh no, let me go back in the hole. Whoa. Right? And if he doesn't see a shadow, he's like, sweet, I'm going to play. It's summertime. Summertime. Right? Oh, he did see a shadow. Thank you, Darlene, for letting me know. So apparently, according to Punxsutawney Phil, we're supposed to have, 6 more weeks of winter? Here's the thing. Spring's not until March anyway. And this is the beginning of Imbolc. It's a pagan-based holiday where we start to celebrate the beginnings of spring. It's like the time of everything kind of like being in utero. It's like preparing for the birth of spring. This is the time that is and has been celebrated. So it's this time, literally, y'all, to go inward and to see what we have, to set the intentions, right? So looking at that as far as Svadhyaya and self-study goes, it's like, okay, if I'm looking inward, what do I intend to do with this information? What do I intend to be with this new data as I study me? Not just my body and not just my mind, but the bigness of me. That is what Svadhyaya is, and it's very relatable to Imbolc and to Groundhog Day and to what I feel is happening on the collective scale with the planets and all the things like that. The moment of conception. I probably just sounded like I just said that I was reading Tina's comment. I don't think it's celebrated as the moment of conception. I think it's like after conception, before it's birthed. I could be mistaken. I could be. So there's that. Yeah, silly Punxsutawney. And Mark says that word sounds like the character on a TV named Yaya, right? It's like Sven and Svadhyaya. They're a couple. Yeah, they both wear braids. I don't know why some of these, like, I see characters in my head too, Mark. So when you said that, I'm kind of like, yeah, I get that a lot. True story. But yeah, like this, but yeah, it's this. The term is to do self-study, and in like the Yoga Sutras, I need to move this again. In the Yoga Sutras, it's talked about in reference to doing self-study through spiritual texts. And I'm curious, here's my question to you. Do you read spiritual texts? And if so, what's your go-to? Like, what's your go-to spiritual text? I'm curious. I know a lot of people would say the Bible, right? I feel like that's a really popular one in the North American culture. Mark says funny. I know, right? So what spiritual text books of text do you read? Curious. Because y'all know I haven't read the Bible, which I just talked to someone recently and he refers to it as the Bible, and it kind of cracked me up. I was like, oh, that's putting the Bible. Tina's go-to is the Bible, but I'm doing the Tao of Food at the moment. Oh, that's so good. I love that one. That was so beautiful. It just in itself, it's so it connects everything for me in such beautiful and concise ways. I feel like the few very few things I've read in the Bible, they're long-winded for me personally, and it's kind of like I read it and then I get to like I extrapolate this and that and the other, which is a part of the Svadhyaya. It's reading the text and really like relishing every single word in it and using that to kind of feel your feels and apply it to you in your life and to the oneness. Ooh, Mama Jane is sharing because I asked what spiritual texts you read. Let's see. Mom says, I have 5 devotional books that I read every day with another that provides scriptures to read daily. Ooh, so are they, I feel like I've seen them on that little table. And what's your favorite, Mom? Which out of your 5 devotionals, if and the scriptures to read daily, if you were to go to like a deserted island and you could only take one of those books, which of those books would you take? And let's see, Charles says, hey, I read several on a regular basis. So he reads the Bible, the 4 Agreements, and currently studying the 5th Agreement, which I have not read yet, and I'm very excited to read more about that one. Tina says, She's reading Perfectly Ordinary. Ooh, I have not heard of that one. I'm curious about that one. Tanisha, how are you? Can I say the last spiritual text again? Tina, I think it was the one that Tina mentioned, the Tao of Pooh, Pooh, like Winnie the Pooh. Um, and I was saying that a lot of Taoist texts are really great sources to look to. Um, Tina's also reading, Buddhism in Everyday Life. Is that another book or is that Perfectly Ordinary? I'm guessing that's a different book. There's so many spiritual texts. And, if I'm reading the Bible and I'm reading Buddhism and Marv is reading Proverbs in the Bible, is that like a chapter? I feel like that's like a chapter, right? Isn't that, I know that like it's really, I'm speaking out. I'm literally just speaking my thoughts on this one. I find it really interesting that I talk about so much spirituality and I haven't read the Bible. Oh, I feel kind of like I should, but yeah, that's not. Perfectly Ordinary is Buddhism in Everyday Life. Gotcha. Thank you, Tina. Tanisha, it's if you scroll up to read Tina's comment on what book it is, it's Tao, the Tao of Pooh. And Alan is reading 1 Corinthians about love. Interesting. Hey, Kai, how are you? Kai, I'm asking, what spiritual texts do you read? What's your go-to? Anything. So when I asked Mama Jane if you could take one book on this island that's deserted, which one would it be? She said it's Joyce Meyer's. It's called Trusting God Day by Day. I have another daily devotional book written by Joyce Meyer. I haven't seen that one. Thank you, Tina, for sharing that. Okay, Trusting God Day by Day. Interesting. And then Tanisha says, let's see, I read The Laws of Imperfections by Brene Brown, along with the Bible. Don't know if it's spiritual, but her ideas and vulnerability help me feel spiritual. Yes, I agree with that, because that's the thing about spiritual texts, which is what I want to dive into. So oftentimes, spiritual texts have been considered to be, the Yoga Sutras, the Bible, the Quran, like these beautiful texts. Great. And there's so much more that are current texts that are actually very spiritual in nature, but they're not billed as spiritual texts. And I think Brene Brown is a really beautiful example of that. Ooh, let me see what y'all are saying. Cindy sharing for recovery, like the 12 steps in Buddhism. Oh, awesome. Yes. See, I think I read this book by Osho that was really landed for me. It's called Buddha, Zen, Tao, and Tantra. And to me, it's the 4 pillars of life on earth. So he talks about, Buddhism. He talks about Tao. I just totally blanked on the name. Zen. Zen. That's what it is. He talks about Zen. He talks about Buddhism, Tao, and Tantra. And to me, those are the 4 pillars of love, acceptance, compassion, and creativity. Without any of those, like, we're in this 3rd dimensional paradigm and we kind of suck. But that was a huge spiritual book. And then I read his like bibliography. I don't know if it was bibliography or biography. I don't remember now. And that was an interesting spiritual text, just from like his life point of view. Some people didn't like Osho. Did you know that when he came to Charlotte, he was arrested? Freedom of speech, my ass. Okay, Tanisha. Oh, the Wi-Fi. Gotcha. Okay. And Kai says, okay, honestly, I'm not a reader. I go to YouTube for my information. And I usually just watch people who are farther on their journey. Right? That right there. That's another thing. We have so many spiritual texts, right? Old ones. We also have new ones. Not only do we have new ones, I think that there's a lot of spirituality on other platforms that are kind of outside the textbook realm. And YouTube is a great example of that. blogs. If you go to like medium.com, it's like an online, publishing platform where you can publish your works. And it's interesting because this Svadhyaya of studying self through spiritual text is so vast that I think that when we can really start to just kind of sample this buffet of spiritual texts and inspirational stuff, not that they're the same, we start to look inward when we can apply it to the me, to the I am, right? Because I am the I am, you are I am. And whatever I read in the Yoga Sutras, that's just the book I have here because it talks about Svadhyaya in it. You want to apply it to yourself. I was going to say something else, but I want to read what you all are saying. Yes. Tina says Alan Watts. That, I have never ingested any of Alan Watts's things, but I get asked frequently if I know his stuff, so I'm guessing I would really groove on him. But she says that The Way of Zen by Alan Watts is awesome. Okay. So Marv was because I'm about the Proverbs. I'm like, what is that? And he said it's a book written by King Solomon. It's words of wisdom. Interesting. Ooh, Charles shares this. I'm not sure if you would consider spiritual, but I also like listening to Abraham Hicks, Joel Osteen, Tony Robbins, and any other of the inspirational speakers. I would consider that spiritual text by the means of, or by the definition of Svadhyaya. They talk about these things bigger than them, the application of their life experience or whatever they're channeling. And then how can I take that and really feel it? It's more than just reading a textbook. When you read or ingest or watch spiritual text and information, like it leaves you with a feeling. It leaves you with a taste in your mouth. It leaves you with an idea, a new perspective, a deeper place to look within, a different way to see others around us. Thanks for sharing that. I'm loving y'all sharing these things. Oh, the Daily Stoic 366 meditations. Oh, interesting. I've not read that one, Alan. So Tina asks, what is the definition of the ya? The definition of Svadhyaya is self-study through spiritual texts. That's it. And there was something that I was going to share this last week when we were talking about death and what happens next. That was last week. But didn't get around to it. And I was like, I wonder why. Why did I forget that? And then I realized, I think it was for this day, because the way this poem, this short poem that I'm going to read in a moment, the way it landed for me, landed like a spiritual text would, And it also reminded me that sometimes, for me, spiritual text is right outside my window. Sometimes the spiritual text to look at is nature. I know that's not what they talk about in the Yoga Sutras, and they would probably get butthurt that I'm mentioning that nature is my source of Svadhyaya and not a book written, but it's my truth. Tanisha says she likes the 48 Laws of Power. Oh, I don't know what that is. I have to look that one up. I'm so excited to go back through all these comments and write all these things down and have a whole list of awesome things that I haven't read. And also loves Abraham Hicks. I forgot I used to read that. Thanks for sharing. Right? That's what I was saying. Tina says, so anything that brings us into a self-study can be Svadhyaya. I say yes. I say yes to that. Someone may say no to that. That being said, I say yes. I say that anything that brings us into self-study can be Svadhyaya. Yeah, that's what I say. I know that there are people that would disagree with that, and I would understand why, because it's not a spiritual text necessarily. Like nature is not. The woods are not a spiritual text. By the way, this is Michael's mug. How hilarious is this? Anyway, yoga mug. So I want to share this poem, y'all. And I don't know who wrote it at all. It was red, and I asked for a copy, so I got the copy. But it's called I Am. It says, and this ties in kind of what I was saying. Oh, really? Tina says that according to the Bible, nature is a text. See, that's what I was saying. I didn't know the Bible said that. Thank you. That makes me feel better about me saying that. Yes, Svadhyaya, nature. Whoa! I'm drinking Ojibwa tea. It's not even caffeinated. Ooh, Cindy says, yes, Abraham Muji and Matt Kahn. Yes, so many good ones. Yes, love it. Okay, y'all ready for this poem? It's short. It's called I Am. It says, I am the wind in the trees and the song of a bird. I am moonbeams in a midnight sky and a glorious rainbow after the storm. I am morning dew and freshly fallen snow. I am a butterfly flying overhead and a puppy happily at play. I am a gentle touch, a warm embrace. Open your heart to know I am not gone. Reach deep into your soul, you will find me. I am here. Have no fear. I am with you, always. And that really got me thinking. That really just got me thinking about myself and who we all are, whether we're here in the human body or we've transitioned and we're not in the physical body anymore, but we're still here. Last week we talked about how energy is not created or destroyed. It's the law of conservation of energy. We literally transmute, change shape, change forms. We alchemize. We just transition from a this to a that. So if that's the case, then it is the case, laws of nature. But it makes me realize that when I'm not in my form, that I am the wind in the trees, right? And that I am the song of a bird. And then it makes me think every time. I just heard the wind chimes when I was saying that, by the way. That was pretty cool. That wind that blew those chimes, the color of the sunset that was 20 minutes ago, which was so beautiful and vibrant, that is I am. That is spirit. That is me. That is you. So that says that not only is this poem a spiritual text for me, because it makes me look at spirit, for example, it also inspired me to look outside of text for spiritual information, for spiritual inspiration, for spiritual data, for a likeness of spirit, that it's in nature, it's everywhere. So then I ask, not including spiritual texts, where else do you find inspiration that a spiritual text would offer? That's a question. Mine is nature. Every time. Every time. And depending on what kind of mood I'm in, a way for me to dive into Svadhyaya and study myself is through the lens of others. To be a witness and to watch others and to be a witness to how others treat me, because everyone's a reflection of me. I'm a reflection of you. Really, Cindy? Cindy shares that nature was her first form of a higher power. I'm with you on that one. I am so with you on that one. I shared last week how the notion of God was this like white dude in the sky that was like, I'm going to judge you. And it just wasn't resonant for me. But I always had this affinity for nature. I always had a connection with the dirt, with the rocks, with the trees, God, with the water. Ah, anything in nature, I just felt so much. I felt humbled. I felt taken care of. I felt supported. I felt nourished. And to me, that feels more like this notion of God without being a white man in the sky. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Tina says, nature, art, music, theater, there's so many for me. I connect everything. I'm so glad you mentioned those things. Because Svadhyaya to me, dear God, art, God, y'all. So I just went to this new place that just opened up in Charlotte. It's called the Collective Good. Highly encourage going there and like sharing your money because it supports so local. You don't even know so local artists and artisans. Oh, local. So good. Anyway, but there was so much art in there. And I'm like, and what it did for my heart, what I saw in it, what I felt with it. And I remember that every piece of art that's created, spirit was moving through that human. They were in some form of self-study. They were going inward, studying on some level, whether they were doing it with their consciousness or not, and creating something. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And Tanisha shares, let's see, is it possible something we have written can be a spiritual text? Sometimes a journal I wrote years ago or quote feels spiritual, like it is speaking to my present self, or poetry and music. Yes, I totally feel that. I think that like when I go back and look at some of my old journals, not the ones that were like, I hate myself and I want to die, not those journals, but the ones where I was like, writing to myself, like, you got this type of stuff. Those, when I read them now, I feel something more. I feel there's this like little twinkle of magic in there. So I say yes, 110%, that a spiritual text may be something that you have already created. Maybe the spiritual text that is going to be your go-to is something that you're creating now or that you're going to create. Maybe your spiritual text, maybe your finger quotes there, right? Your spiritual text, maybe your form, your avenue to Svadhyaya, maybe it's the garden. Maybe it's the garden that you've been planting and planning for the past 6 months. Maybe that is where you truly connect with this bigness of you and this teeny tiny smallness, humble part of you. So yes, I say what you create for sure. When I asked, other than spiritual text, what else would you consider your spiritual text, right? For the self-study and inspiration and clarity and bringing it all together. Charles says, yep, sunrise, sunset, the arches in Utah. Cool, right, Utah. Any waterfall. Church has always been a verb, not a noun for me. Right? Yes, thank you for sharing that. Like, so often, we're taught to go to church and 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 I'm not saying church is bad by any stretch. I haven't found, it's not my jam. However, I have gone to some services that really lit me up, that I felt fulfilled, and they would share something, they would read something that would speak to my heart, a spiritual text, right? They would share something. But I like that. I like that statement. Church has always been a verb, not a noun. Church can totally be a verb. I like that. Let's go churching. Can we be a non-religious churching organization? It's basically a place of servitude. Can we do that? Maybe that's what we're doing. Who knows? But yeah, I feel like there are texts that I have read in my life that have completely changed my outlook. Excuse me. Like Cindy Dale. She is like my energy guru that I study with as often as I possibly can. Her books, I just had it out. I didn't bring it, just right here. But it's like it's like, if this is the Yoga Sutras, it's like that big. It's probably like a 10-pound book. But it's like the complete book of all things chakra knowledge, all the energy stuff, which has a lot of spiritual components to it because it's all connected. And when I read her books, I feel it to be a spiritual text. It fills up my body, it fills up my mind. It allows me to study myself. It directs my focus back to me in this not egoic way, but in this bigness way of the I am connection. So I like that. Marv says that my journey took me from being a taker. I am the talker. I'm going to restart that, Marv, because I just butchered up what you were saying. Again, he says, my journey took me from being a taker to become a giver. I like to listen to nature. Right? Sometimes, have you all done this lately? Have you just gone outside and just closed your eyes and just listened? You know, one of the most profound meditations that I had, check this out. I found this very interesting when it happened. I was in my backyard and I was meditating, and it was like one of those perfect weather days. You know, the sun was shining on me, and it just felt like complete and utter perfection. And then one of the neighbor's dogs started to bark. And I was like, it's cute. It's a puppy, whatever. And then I heard like the lawnmower at another neighbor's house. And I was like, I just wanted to meditate. And then I really sat with that. You know, I sat with that frustration briefly. And I thought, why am I so frustrated? Like, these two are the sounds of nature. You know, it isn't just the waterfall sound. It's not just the rain or the crackling fire. But, you know, the hustle and bustle of life is also nature. So to sit there and, like Mark says, to listen to nature, because it's almost like reading an audiobook, right? If you listen to the audiobook of like the Bible, then that would be to me the same as going out into the middle of the woods and closing your eyes and just listening. Or sitting in the middle of a busy park and just listening to the children laughing, listening to the people riding bicycles, listen to the airplanes overhead and the trees and the birds and all the things. Spiritual texts can be nature to inspire us to go inward and to connect. Where do I fit into this? Good evening, Catherine. Charles says, yeah, of course it could be something you wrote. Someone else wrote the others. Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes. Tina, you crack me up. Tina says, I almost got attacked by a squirrel while meditating outside. My friend saw white squirrels a couple months ago, y'all. You can't make that up. Who has ever seen a white squirrel? Not me. I've seen black ones, but they were in Canada. Anyway, you gave him a heart attack when you moved. I bet you did. Oh my gosh, you're cracking me up. Yeah, that's a spiritual text right there. But yeah, I feel like, and tell me what y'all think. You know, why? What's the point? What's the point of looking outside of self, spiritual text, right, for the self-study? Because yesterday I talked about self-study very inward way, right? Like when I look at my body, how can I, like, I'm going to study it, right? I'm going to study my skin. I need more moisture. I'm going to drink more water. You know, I'm going to study my body and be like, it's a little lethargic. I need more sunshine and maybe eat some prunes, which have a ton of B vitamins, by the way. Anyway, and study my mind, study my thoughts, study my shadow. Where can I integrate? Where can I heal? Right? It was a very inward looking form of Svadhyaya, of self study. So my question is, why look outside of self to study self? Why? Why? Tina says, because we don't know it all, and what we need to be connected to often gets revealed. I agree. Look at that. Yeah, captions. Right, Catherine? Isn't the laughter fun? So I'm telling you. Why can't I get that off? Oh, man. Anyway, my screen did a little spaz out. Yeah, so why else? Why else would we look outside of self to study self? I love what Tina says, because we don't know it all. And even if you think you know it all, if you read anything else or look at anything else outside of your mere reflection and all the channels that you normally watch, then you're going to see that there's another perspective, that there's more to look at. And that is what we get to connect to, that gets to be revealed. How oftentimes do you know, or maybe you are someone who only watches the 1 or 2 news channels? You only watch this channel. You don't look at the opposing view. If you vote this way, it's because you won't even listen to what the other person says. You won't look to the other side. So at that point, are you missing out on potential of what could be revealed? Why even bother, right? Like, why would I look to the other channel? Why would I listen to the other person's perspective? From what I know, I don't agree with it, even though I've never really talked to them, although I've never tuned in. So why bother? Why bother looking outside of self to study self? I know, Tina, isn't it a great word? Svadhyaya. This is just fun to say. It's fun to say. Toothpaste coughs. Why else? Why else would we look outside of ourselves to learn about ourselves? You know what I think? I think sometimes when we look outside of ourselves, it shows us parts of ourselves that we don't like. Like, it's kind of like it's kind of like trying something new and not being good at it. How you kind of feel like you suck. You're like, oh, I suck because I'm not good at this thing that I've never done before. And that moment of feeling like I suck, nobody wants to do that. But if we can move through it and sit with it and learn the whatever it is that we're going to now do, then we start to expand. We expand our knowledge base. We expand our capacity. We ascend. We grow. I feel like it's kind of like that. Sometimes when we look outside of ourselves, we may not like what we see. But to me, that's just another space to form like love and compassion and grace and forgiveness around, to integrate those shadow parts. Thank you, Punxsutawney Phil, for coming back at us now. Ooh, Marv says, something in my eye. He didn't say that. I said that. There was something, y'all. Anyway, I had some itchy eyes this morning while I was choking on toothpaste. Anyway, Mark says, I wrote this a while ago and now I live by it. Says, to break out of the ordinary, we must be brave and colorful to cover the darkness of our past and see the brightness of the future we seek. Yeah, we must be. Thank you for sharing that, Marv. That's beautiful. We must be brave and colorful. And it's almost like if I gave you a box of like 15 crayons and that's the only thing you've ever known, you're going to have fun with it. You're going to draw and create and whoopity doo. But it's not until you start exploring, checking out other places and things that you might be like, whoa, you hit the jackpot and you found the 64 pack of crayons or the 187,000 pack of crayons. And then you start to be like, whoa, I can do so much more with this. I didn't even know this existed for me to create with. Right? I love that. I'm going to read it again. To break out of the ordinary, we must be brave and colorful, to cover the darkness of our past and see the brightness of the future we seek. It also makes me think about creating that, like coloring it in and all that. It makes me think about art, that the spiritual text could be a painting that you did, Tina says we need to look at why we don't like something. Does it offend our sensibilities, or is there something similar in us we dislike? So true. So true. Like, there are some things that I have read that I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, it just doesn't feel right to me, like the God being the white dude in the sky, it didn't feel right. But when I was studying psychology the first time, there were parts that I was reading that I didn't like because it was a reflection of parts of me that I wasn't ready to look at because I hated those parts of me so much. I think that's a beautiful point of why we look at stuff outside of ourselves to study ourselves. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes we read something and it triggers us, it rubs us the wrong way. And it could be real easily a way to see where we can heal. It makes me think about this poem. If I read this, the line is that I am moonbeams in a midnight sky and a glorious rainbow after the storm. I am morning dew and freshly falling snow, freshly fallen snow. And it makes me think, if I read that and I'm like a really big litter bug, where I'm just like, I'm complaining about everything, like, oh, it's raining again, and I'm throwing my garbage out the window, and like, like having zero reverence for the planet, the mothership. And I read that, and I might have a reaction of, well, that's stupid. I might have a reaction of an internal disgust. And it could be because this is reflecting to me something glorious and beautiful that is nature that I have completely dissociated myself with and in fact started to do harm around. I think that it's really important for us to like look outside of ourselves to study ourselves, and not with judgment, but just this open mind, like letting it sink in. I had gotten this book years ago, and it's a book of religions. And I studied, like, I don't want to say theology, but spiritual stuff for a very long time. And I got a book, and it was all about all the religions. And it listed as many religions as could be listed from A to Z, and just kind of like what their beliefs were. When I read it, I was fascinated. I was like, there's a religion called Jainism? What? There's I don't think of them all right now. Like, there's literally thousands of religions. And it opened my mind to all this potential of beliefs in humans, right? And then it allowed me more freedom to do more exploration on what I believed in. And it's interesting because if I had read that book in a different timeline, I would have been like, well, those religions are wrong because my religion is right. Because that's what my religion says. My religion says that my religion is right, and any religion that's different is wrong. Ah. I'm like, no, that's not true. But it took me reading something outside of myself to study myself, study my opinions around it, and to form something bigger around it. There's a helicopter. It's flying very low. I can hear it right now. Very interesting. I'm going to change this so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Boom. So, yeah, self study, spiritual texts. Here's a question. Well, we have a few more minutes. Um, so, we've talked about texts, we've talked about nature being a source of Svadhyaya. We've talked about different like things on YouTube. Are there any things on TV that's like your source of Svadhyaya? It makes me. Do y'all remember when Jim and Tammy Faye Baker were like a thing? I don't. I never watched them. I was always fascinated with her eye makeup, though. That woman wore so much mascara. I can't imagine. Anyway, but like people would be tuned into the evangelical programs of Jim and Tammy Faye, you know, and that was their, you know, was it Svadhyaya? Like, was that what allowed them to study themselves more? Um, and I ask that because now that I'm thinking about a lot of the evangelical spiritual stuff, what I've witnessed wasn't to study myself. It basically told me reasons to judge myself. Is that anyone else's experience? There's there's a church with a preacher dude, and he's evangelical, you know, like he's all on the big screen, which is hilarious because I'm talking my opinion and I'm on a screen. I get the irony. Anyway, but what he always talked about, even in one of the books he read, what he wrote, which I started to read and I had to put it away. It was not okay in my mind. Anyway, um, his focus, his commentary was how to be more like God, which was to be more like him, which was to be more wealthy, and to have a wife that stands behind you and supports you. And that's his pedestal that I'm guessing he still speaks on. I don't know. And I'm like, is this really self-study? Does this really like fill up someone? Or does it make someone feel like they're needing to be more in a patriarchal system? Does it make them feel not enough? Because it sure wasn't filling me up. It didn't feel good to me. So is there anything like on the TVs that is, or whatever, that is that Svadhyaya, like self-study stuff? Yes, Michael Prokopiak, it is a nice mug, as you comment on here. It's great. It's got my OG boy. Y'all are cracking me up. Tina says, everything I see, hear, do, or come in contact with has potential to be Svadhyaya. It all depends on how it connects or what interest it tweaks. Usually I end up seeing that thread over again that week. Right. Isn't that interesting? I do the same thing. Like I'll see something and I'm like, wow, that struck a chord. You know, that was interesting. I connected with that. And then it's like the rest of the week. It's like this. I thought about this topic, this Svadhyaya, the self-study on Sunday. I was like, I want to talk about that. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then I'm starting to see all the things that like tie into it. Other people are making posts around it. And I'm like, we're all on the same wavelength. Yee! Which I think is another great reason to study anything outside of self, because then not only does it connect back to me, but then it connects to like everyone, right? Oh, thank you. Cindy says, oh gosh, I needed this connection tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here with me. Like, seriously, this is part of my personal Svadhyaya. Like, to be able to have an interactive experience around spirituality, to hear and see others' ideas and perspectives and texts and things that light you up and all this stuff. To me, this fills me up to look more deeply into myself and to inspire me to like, let me go check out that book. Let me check out Joyce Meyer that my mom's been reading. Who knew? You know, I find it to be so fulfilling. And I think that Svadhyaya, to study self through anything outside of self, we'll call it a spiritual text, should be fulfilling on some level, some way, shape, or form, like to fill you up, to connect you with something bigger, the bigger part of you, the unseen part of you, the infinite potential of you, something to inspire a connection with this great earth. Y'all, big mothership, glorious beast of a thing she is, floating around in the universe. Like, talk about places of all types of self-study. Tina says, also, if it inspires me to look at it with an artistic endeavor, it is Svadhyaya. Svadhyaya. I love that you call it the ya. That's really funny. It's whenever I am in any kind of emotional place and I don't know how to process it. Like, oftentimes I'll say bad news, like you get news that it just is, and you just don't like it. Bad news. And, old me would drink or use drugs or just do something to distract myself. And over the course of my self-study, I've realized like that's not healthy. Can't do that. And so then I would use like working out as the way to get through and to process the bad news, which I think was really healthy. And I also realized that there were areas that I could grow doing something artistic and creative. I say artistic, creative. Because while I was creating something new, whatever that was, right? Journaling, painting, I would get so much clarity on the bigger picture of the bad news, like of what the gift in it is, or where it could lead, or how it could be a gift for me to share with others. But I think allowing the Svadhyaya to come in a now moment while we're creating is extremely powerful, which is all the more reason to tune into the creative time with me tomorrow morning at 10. How is that for y'all? How is that? That was slick. And I didn't even mean for that to be. Sometimes I just impress myself, and I just did. Like, tune in tomorrow with me at 10. We'll be creating something, and we'll be creating with this Svadhyaya as like the overarching topic of self-study. So it'll be fun. So tune in with me, y'all. But until then, keep studying and let me know more books if you think about it. Like, continue commenting if you think about a spiritual text that just really lights you up. Please share it in the comments, because like I said, I may not respond to any or many of them, but I read each of them. So there's that. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here and tuning in and sharing with me all of the ways that you study yourself and that you see yourself in everything that you study. So take care of you. Take care of each other. Keep breathing. Keep drinking water and know how much you're appreciated and loved. And I will see you all on another now, probably tomorrow. Okay. Bye, y'all.